Well, kind of a disaster here. Kind of a disaster. Hello friends, and welcome to the Guitar Foster Parent. I'm John McLain, your host, and today we're going to continue along on our Harmony Model 2814 project that we started just a couple of weeks ago. Today we'll be replacing these cheap, loose tuners that will prevent the guitar from ever staying in tune with a nice brand new set of Strat-style Grover tuners. We'll talk a little bit about why I like these and why a lot of players actually prefer these tuners, and we'll get them installed on this guitar today. Also, I've been dying to know where this guitar came from. When was it made? Where was it made? When was it born? Sometimes we'll find information in strange places. You know, I haven't found any serial numbers, anything except the model number sticker here on the back of the neck. So today, I'm going to pull the neck off of this bolt-on guitar. Sometimes manufacturers will put stamps or other types of markings inside this joint where they'll be hidden from view. But sometimes we'll find things like initials from inspections or date stamps on when a neck and body were made, or maybe even a serial number. I'm not hopeful about that, but we'll go ahead and take this neck off. It's just 4 screws. We'll remove the neck and see if we find any surprises inside. That's all coming up today on the Guitar Foster Parent. But first, I want to welcome all of our new subscribers to the channel. We've had a lot of folks subscribe since last time we were together, and I want to say thank you. I hope you enjoy what you see on the channel, and I'd love to hear your suggestions and comments. You can leave them down below, or you can email me anytime at john@guitarfosterparent.com. You can also leave comments on our Facebook page at guitarfosterparent.com. That'll take you straight there. By the way, speaking of suggestions, I wanted to give a shout out to Mark, who is a fan of the Guitar Foster Parent channel. Mark said, "John, don't forget about left-handed players when you're out there searching for guitars for the channel." Mark, thank you for that reminder. You know, I was at the Dallas International Guitar Festival a couple of weeks ago, and I did notice kind of a lack of left-handed instruments, but there were a few. I think that's a great idea, so I will keep my eyes peeled for a left-handed guitar of some kind, or a bass, that we can feature on the Guitar Foster Parent. Mark, thanks for checking in with an excellent suggestion. We got to remember our left-handed brothers and sisters, don't we? Well, without further ado, let's talk tuners. You know, I talked a little bit last time we were together that for a guitar to be fun to play, fun to own, and to keep it from being stuck in the closet for the rest of time, it's got to stay in tune. Nobody likes to have a guitar that you have to tune every song, or sometimes even during a song, because the thing just won't hold tension. It won't stay in tune. Strings either go sharp or they go flat, because these tuners are very often to blame. And you can see on this old Harmony, this tuner is very, very loose, and this one up here is also very loose. These middle 4 are not terribly loose, but they don't turn smoothly. They're crunchy and noisy. There's slop in them. They're just not nice tuners. And you know, this guitar was probably made to be affordable. My understanding is that these Model 2814s were sold in department stores, by and large. So these were starter instruments designed to be affordable, simple. And so, in order to save money, the manufacturer put on these no-name, very inexpensive tuners. They might have worked fine when the guitar was new, but since they're inexpensive, cheap, they wear out very, very quickly. Hopefully these tuners weren't like this when the guitar was new, but no matter. Today, this guitar is going to receive what many players consider to be the finest tuners on the market. These Grover Strat-style tuners. We're going to be putting these on the guitar today. I want to talk a little bit about what I like about Grover tuners. Many of my guitars in my collection feature this type of tuner. The thing I think I like best about these tuners is that they are sealed. What I mean is the gearbox inside the tuner is sealed up. That gives you 2 very important advantages. First, You don't have to worry about ever lubricating it. It's kind of like a sealed bearing, wheel bearing on modern vehicles. You don't have to pack grease in bearings like you used to back in the day. Now they're factory sealed. The grease is sealed inside. And that brings me to number 2. They stay clean. Dirt and dust cannot get in to the tuner mechanism. And of course, anytime you work gears that are dirty, even if they're not particularly lacking in lubrication, it's going to break down the metals in the gears, and eventually you'll wind up with loose, sloppy gears. So Grover has designed these tuners to be sealed, so you never have to lubricate them. And better yet, because guitars do get dusty, you don't have to worry about dust particles getting in there and causing excessive wear. These are really, really great tuners. They make all different types. This is just your basic chrome Strat style. You can see they're inline. If you have a guitar, like for example, some of these Epiphone examples will have 3 on either side, that would be a different type of tuner because you'll have to get 3 of them that are set up the opposite way. But this is a Strat style head where all of the strings are in a line, and so we'll be putting these tuners on this guitar today. They should fit fine, but there are a couple of possibilities that we might run into for alterations we'll have to make to the headstock. I haven't checked yet. I can do that if we have to, and so we'll get into it right now. Let's get some brand new Grover tuners on this guitar. Well, the first thing that we'll want to do is turn the guitar over because the screws that fasten the tuners are on the back of the headstock. You can see that the screws are quite small. Now notice that these tuners feature 2 screws and they're kind of diagonally oriented. And what we're going to do is make a slight alteration because these Grover tuners only have 1 screw that holds them in place and then a threaded ferrule. We'll go into what that means in just a moment. Little bit different, but I've got a plan on how we'll make that look good. First step though is to take our screwdriver and very carefully remove these tuners. Okay, so all the tuners are removed, and we'll kind of give this a little general wipe down here. There's a little bit of dust here. Okay, now let's talk about another part of the tuner. By the way, here's what these tuners look like when they're removed. Very simple. These are little covers, but you can see that this is really, really worn out. I don't even remember which one this is, but this is, as I removed each of these tuners, I was convinced that this was a good play, so I'm glad we're doing this. All right, let's turn the headstock back over so I can show you. On the front of the headstock, there's some ferrules in here that the post of the tuner fit through, obviously, and then this is where the guitar strings up. These ferrules are not going to fit our new tuners, but that's okay because our new Grover tuners come with new ones. So what we'll need to do is remove these ferrules carefully from the guitar so that we can fit our new ones in. The way we'll do that is we'll approach it from the back and we will very carefully, because we don't want to damage the hole here, we'll very carefully push these through and have them come out on the other end. Let's do that now. Okay, so all the ferrules are now removed from the headstock, and we can get a good look now that we just have holes drilled in the wood. So we'll wipe this down a little bit here. Okay, so now our headstock is prepared for our new tuners. And what we're going to do is we're going to now open this package and see what we've got inside this Grover tuners. These tuners come with all the hardware you need in this little bag. You'll see we've got screws and these ferrules and washers. I'm going to show you how that works. And then the tuners themselves. We'll gently lift this out. These are number 305 tuners, in case you're looking for some. Set this over here. And so we'll remove them from the package. They're all the same. Again, this is an inline set. So all of these will be oriented the same way. Just remove them from the card here. By the way, these tuners feature an 18-to-1. Grover calls these rotomatics, 18-to-1. I really don't know. I mean, I guess if you're a real pro player, you may prefer certain types of these things to others. For me, I really don't care if they're 20-to-1 or 16-to-1 or 18-to-1. But if you do, make sure you check before you buy some. So now, the next step is to dry fit this. Let me show you how these Grovers are set up. Here's our little hardware bag, and I'm going to kind of pour this out over on this side so I don't get things mixed up here. There are several components to these. I mentioned earlier that these Grover tuners only come with one screw per tuner. That's because, unlike the ones we took off, these only fasten on the back of the headstock with one screw, and you can see the hole for that purpose right there. But how is one screw going to hold this in place? Well, it isn't. These tuners are designed with a threaded ferrule that will go in the top and will actually thread into the tuner this way. This will give it a very, very accurate lock into the headstock through the top. And this is also, you'll see this ferrule at the top, rather than just being a push-in style like the ones we just removed. This one will actually is a hex head, and this is 10mm, by the way. So basically what's going to happen is this tuner, and we'll use one of the middle ones as an example. This tuner will come up like this, and this ferrule will come down, but uh-oh, what's the matter here? Aha! Notice that the shaft of this tuner is too wide to go through our headstock. You see that? Which means we're going to have to widen these holes slightly to get these tuners to fit. I had a feeling that might be an issue, but it's no problem. We'll be very careful. What we're going to have to do is drill out these holes in the headstock to fit this bottom shaft. You can see, here's the shaft that will appear on the top. This bottom shaft will insert, and then this surface will be flush right here. So we need to find a drill bit that will give a snug fit to that size right there. And then we'll need to widen these holes very carefully here so that we don't damage the surface. Well, after some checking, I'm going to go with a 5/16 drill bit to widen the holes here in this headstock. And I'm a little concerned about damage to the edges of the holes. As the drill bit moves through, there's a chance some splintering might happen. And so after some thought, I thought it would probably be a better idea to drill down from the top, because the tuners will cover in case any type of damage occurs. So I'm going to move the guitar down so that I've got a good, in my beanbag here, that I've got a good, and then I'm going to use our old friend masking tape. I'm going to put a strip on both sides and cover all 6 of these holes. That will help support the wood surface as we drill. Now I'm going to take and I'm going to poke holes through the masking tape so that I can see where I'm drilling. I'm just using a cheap little utility file that I have to punch through. And I'll show you this. All right, so now I know where to aim my drill bit. And so here's what we've done to prep the headstock. On both sides, we've applied a strip of masking tape over all 6 holes on the front and the back. And I'm going to drill down from the front, because if any splintering happens, I want it to be covered by this tuning machine. So, again, taking our time, let's widen out these holes to fit our new tuners. Okay. Now, let's see if we can dry fit our tuner up through one of these holes and see if it will fit now. Again, we want it to be snug. So as you can see, this tuner still does not want to fit in the holes. So we're going to move up one step on our drill bit. All right, so we've gone from 5/16, 3/8. Same procedure. Well, kind of a disaster here. Kind of a disaster. Some of these hopped up pretty badly. The masking tape failed to protect this. I'm not super worried. We're going to peel the tape off and see what kind of damage was done. But I can tell, at least on this hole, the drill jerked. I probably should have held it with both hands. That's my mistake. But we can apply some repair. And remember, these ferrules are going to cover the very edges. But we'll take the tape off and see what kind of damage we've got. But I can tell right here on string number 3 anyway, that the drill definitely did cause a little damage, unfortunately. Mostly cosmetic. We'll get in there and we'll see what it looks like. Now, we've peeled the tape back a little. Let's dry fit and make sure our holes are large enough. Now, pull the tape off. And as you can see, it's still a little snug. So I may widen those holes out just a touch. Let's remove our tape. All right, now you can see right here, this piece of wood has tried to come up a little bit. I'm going to very carefully pull this tape out of the way. And you can see, oh man, yeah. Not sure what I could have done differently. We'll talk about that. And let me know, by the way, if you're better at this than I am down in the comments. All right, so there's our top piece of tape removed. Most of the holes turned out okay. The main one that had problems is this number 4. You can see I've knocked out pieces from the top and the bottom. I'll clean this up, try to glue this in. Hopefully it won't show too bad. In fact, I'm going to remove this chip and place it in a safe place so that I can put it back later. Let's remove the tape from the other side of the headstock. These ferrules will sit down in here and will hold this matter down, and hopefully will not distract too much. Like I say, I feel bad about the damage, but it's done. You can see now we've turned the guitar over and I've dry fitted this very first tuner. Now it's not sitting quite flush in the headstock. That's okay. That's one of the nice things, and part of what makes these tuners so accurate is this screw down ferrule is going to pull the tuner down, and this washer will help it sit flush in the headstock. But you'll notice that, again, we talked about it, only one screw per tuner here. But you'll see as I'll go ahead and put the second one in so you can kind of see what it's going to look like. Again, we'll just guide it on in there. You want it to be snug. And these holes are nice and snug. And again, what we'll do is we'll take a ruler and we'll make sure that these are all level before we set them. We'll be drilling new holes for the screw hole, which is at the corner of each one of these. You notice the old screw holes are still showing. So any of the screw holes from the old tuners that are showing, we'll put the original screws back in there so that you don't have a hole in the headstock. You'll just have a screw and it'll look a little bit the same. Now, what I will say is that this screw pattern, where you have one on each ear, if you will, and here's one of the old tuners so you can see the configuration. these you can buy in better brands. I didn't find any readily available, and I didn't want to wait weeks and weeks to do the next video. So, and again, these are very, very common Strat style tuners, and I thought that they would work great on this guitar, so we went ahead and got them. But I knew that they would not line up with the screw holes that are drilled in here, and I also had a feeling they probably weren't going to fit these holes either, which is why we had to drill out, which was more of an adventure than I had hoped for. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and dry fit each of these, and then what we'll do first is we'll mount them from the front of the headstock with the ferrule, and we will thread them gently, not tight, but gently in, and then we'll be able to make fine adjustments before we drill our holes and set our screws. So we'll work on that now. All right, so we've got them roughly dry fitted. You can see they're not straight yet. That's not a problem. What I want to do now is flip the headstock over and begin lightly threading the ferrules in with the washers. All right, so we've essentially just dropped these ferrules on here. These are 10 millimeter, and so I've got a socket. Let's gently, again, we're just going to basically hand tight these with our ratchet, and just tight enough to where we can make fine adjustments on this side before we set them with the screws. All right, so now we've just hand tightened them basically with the socket. I just took the socket off of the ratchet just so you can see kind of what they're going to look like. Now with these Grover tuners, really the only thing that these little tiny screws are for on the back is to keep the tuner from twisting in the socket. It gives it, a pin where it can't turn on its axis here. What really holds it into the guitar are these threaded ferrules here on the top. Now it's time to flip the headstock back over. And what we're going to do is we're going to set these things as straight as we can get them. To do that, I'm going to take a straight edge and I'm going to lay it right across the edge of these tuners. When that's done, we can go ahead and set or rather tighten them on the front with the ferrules, and then last thing we can do is set the screws. All right, so I've just got a standard office ruler straight edge. What I'm going to do is lay it up against here, and then I'm going to you want to make sure and get it on top because this little ear where the screw hole is flares out some. So you want to get above that. And then I'm just going to turn these slightly to where they look as straight as possible. That one's good. That one's... There we go. This one needs to turn slightly. And then finally, this one. Okay, those all look pretty good to me. A couple of notes from tightening these. One thing to bear in mind, these nuts on the end of these ferrules are pretty low profile, so make sure your socket is nice and flush. Again, so much of this is taking your time. And I'll be frank with you, I'm not very good at taking my time. So I tend to get in a hurry, which is not a good idea with these projects. And perhaps if I would have thought a little more carefully, I could have avoided this damage here. I'll probably have to end up doing some sanding or something here, but we'll tackle that later. All right. What do you think? Again, I'm riddled with guilt about this damage here. I'm going to work on that, see if I can't make that look a little better. That's a sharp edge right there. That's unacceptable. But I'll think on that. But there they are. So the only thing to do now that we've got them set where we want them is we're going to need to drill screw holes for all 6 of these holes right here. This is a tiny little bit. This should be a simple job. And then we'll put these little tiny, they're not eyeglass small screws, but they're pretty small. We'll be very careful putting those in. And then the screw holes that are exposed, we'll fill in with one of our takeoff screws from our old one. couple of notes, and again, we're doing this, right in front of you, so there's a lot of things that I didn't consider. These screw holes, I'm going to turn the guitar this way. You can see the filler screws that we use don't seat all the way down. They can't because the heads are too wide. I'm going to leave them in there. No one's ever going to notice that, and I think it looks better than just empty holes in the wood. But, the new owner of the guitar may decide to do something different there. But again, we live and we learn as we go. So, new tuners are in. They feel nice. They're very smooth. These Grover tuners are very smooth. And again, they're sealed. So you'll never have to lubricate these or worry about them getting dirty inside. That's what's nice about them. So we're going to turn them all nice and level. And there we go. New tuners are installed. Before we go today, now that our tuners are installed, I mentioned that I was just really curious to see if we could find any numbers or stamps or anything underneath the neck joint. So what we're going to do is remove the neck real fast. This will be quick. And what I like to do so I don't put any stress on the joint here as I'm loosening these is I'm going to remove the neck support and turn the guitar over on its belly, if you will. And then that way, as I loosen these 4 screws here, there's no, stress on this joint from the guitar trying to bend in half because it's on the neck rest. Let's go ahead and pull this off and see if we find anything. I'm curious. All right, a couple of things before we go ahead and lift the body off the guitar I wanted to mention. You might have noticed that I unscrewed these or loosened them in an X pattern. I do that on purpose because I like to make sure that I'm releasing tension in a more even way. It's kind of the same concept as you tighten lug nuts on a wheel in a certain order. You get a better tension, and so it's just a habit of mine to do that. Also, and again, I really don't know why I do this. I might be a little anal retentive or something, but I like to put the screws back in the holes they were in, so I was careful to arrange them in the same pattern, so when I reinstall them, they'll be in the same holes. All right, so let's remove this plate here. And as you can see, this plate has a bit of a plastic, kind of a rubber backing. I've seen this kind of thing before, and it's not fixed. Yeah, it doesn't look like it was ever glued or anything. It's just a plastic little tray. We'll keep that and we'll kind of put it back together. And here we go. Okay. Well, something I've noticed interesting right off the bat, this neck is shimmed from the factory. There are a couple of, I don't know if they're stuck on here or not. No, they're not, so I'm going to be very careful with them. Obviously, when this guitar was made, they decided they needed to shim the back end of the neck. And so they put, looks like maybe some sort of tape. It's thin. There's 2 strips of it. It's very carefully placed, so I'm going to be very careful not to move that because it's not stuck at all. It's just there. But this obviously means that when this guitar was made, they decided that they needed to change the angle of the neck slightly, which tells me that there might have been some quality control here as opposed to it just being slapped together, and that they had a tolerance that they needed the neck angle to be, and it was out, and so they shimmed this. I'm almost certain this is factory. I don't know that this has ever been off. Can't say that for sure. But unfortunately, I'm a little disappointed that I'm not seeing any types of markings or stamps anywhere underneath here that would indicate. I'm going to look around the edges because sometimes no, all clean here. So I'm going to take it again. I'm going to be very careful with that shim there. I don't want that to move. I'm going to set the neck aside and let's have a look at the body here. And same story. Yeah, I don't see any signs of any type of stamping. If there ever was, it's been painted over here, as you can see. There's a hole right here, then this is how they hang the bodies to paint them. They just hang them in a paint booth, and so they use a hole like that often, or sometimes they'll just screw. I've seen guitars like my OG bass just had some various holes screwed in here haphazardly that they used to hang it to paint it. But yeah, it looks like that the mystery is going to endure because I see no stamps or markings of any kind anywhere in this guitar. Okay, well, one thing that I have noticed, this guitar body is a plywood body. This is a press, and I'll see if I can get this in on the camera. I don't know if you'll be able to see this or not. I'll take a close-up shot so you can see. But a lot of inexpensive guitars are plywood guitar bodies, and they will often use a thick plywood, and then they'll dress it up a little bit. This is a cheap way to make a guitar as opposed to a solid ash body or something like that. Nothing wrong with that necessarily. It doesn't mean this guitar is not worthy of making music, but I've seen that before on inexpensive guitars, a plywood body. Okay, well, I guess it'll be a mystery. I'll do a little internet research and see if I can find out when these 2814s were made and where. In the meantime, though, we're through here. I'm going to very carefully reinstall the neck, not moving that shim. I'll show that to you one more time. As I bring the neck around, you can see that little shim that's sitting right there on the end, and it's just sitting there. Nothing's holding it down. You can see the screw made a little indentation on both ends. We're going to keep that exactly where it is and the exact thickness, because again, this was obviously something that was added at the factory. And there's a little wood debris. We'll remove that. We're going to very carefully reinstall the neck now. Well, if you're new to the guitar foster parent, you might have recoiled in horror when you saw some of the mistakes that I made today. I want to reassure you once again, I'm learning as I go here, and I am more interested in the guitar playing well and learning as we go. I will examine what I did wrong down here on the headstock and try to get better at it. The good news is the tuners are all mounted very, very well. I'll show you what they look like. I think they look nice on there. Best of all, they will keep the guitar in tune better and will never have to be lubricated or cleaned because they are sealed Grover tuners. I'll show you the back of them. And again, you can see the damage on the headstock. I'm going to brainstorm with some ideas on how to fix that and make it look better, and I certainly don't want those sharp wood edges there either. That's not acceptable. If you have any ideas on how I can fix that boo-boo, I'd love to hear them. You can comment down below this video, or you can shoot me a message at john@guitarfosterparent.com. Just be gentle. Well, I'm a little disappointed we didn't find any numbers to date the guitar or anything. I'll do some internet research and try to find out when these were made. Like I say, I'm pretty sure they were mass produced, and by mass I mean probably thousands and thousands. They were sold in department stores, I know that for a fact. And that usually means cartons and cartons of these guitars went all over the country and maybe even beyond that. But that doesn't mean that this guitar can't make music again and be a proud part of someone's collection where it will be played and look cool and feel cool and stay in tune. We've hopefully taken care of a big part of that today. What are we going to do next time? Well, next time we're going to address this fretboard. It's dirty, and these frets, some of them need a little attention. We'll do some polishing and work these things smooth, and we'll start adding some oil to this fretboard once we clean all the oil and, kind of junk that gets off your fingers onto this fretboard. We'll get that all cleaned up. It'll all be about slicking up the fretboard next time on the Guitar Foster Parent. Thank you so much for watching. Do me a favor and smash that subscribe button, click the bell, and like this video so you can be part of the Guitar Foster Parent family. And remember, when you subscribe, if you think of somebody who might be a loving forever home for this guitar, they'll take good care of it and play it, let me know that as well. And we'll start collecting nominees for whoever will be the forever home of this Harmony 2814. I'm John McLain. Thanks again for being with us. We'll see you next time on the Guitar Foster Parent.